On today's show, we'll dive into the number of storylines coming from Las Vegas and the NHL's Media Tour, including a potential Quinn, Jack, and Luke Hughes reunion.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to this Wednesday, September 10th edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me over at Locked On Senators. With me as always on Wednesdays, Battle of Ontario edition from Locked On Maple Leafs. It is Mike DiStefano, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go over to FanDuel. The app is available now, and you can visit FanDuel.com as well and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That is over at FanDuel. Mikey, this was a bombshell right off the bat. Jack Hughes asked by Pierre LeBrun with The Athletic, with TSN, hey, there's a lot of talk in Vancouver about Quinn Hughes, and Jim Rutherford did it to himself by bringing it up after the season. And I appreciate Jack Hughes for giving us a bit of drama here, not taking the quiet road, can't talk about potentially teaming up with my brother. He flat out said it. One day I want to play with Quinn.
Yeah, and I mean, Quinn said this a while ago too, where one day he wanted to play with his brother, and his contract is due for a renewal after next season. So starting this summer, he could sign a new contract. I'm sure it's going to be very loud in Vancouver leading up to that moment. But he was asked about that before, and he said, yeah, one day I'd love to play with my brothers, whether it's here or whether it's in New Jersey or wherever it may be. That is a goal of mine and of ours. So the question is, well, okay, both brothers, and I'd assume Luke is in there as well, defenseman also with the New Jersey Devils. Which place is more likely then, if that's the case? Is Luke and Jack somehow going to make their way to Vancouver, or is it easier just for Quinn to make his way to New Jersey? I guess that's the question now. It sounds as though it's a strong likelihood that at some point these brothers are going to play with each other. If they want to, they can make it happen as early as next season, or possibly even sooner if these two teams can come to an agreement on some sort of trade.
This is the exact quote yesterday from Jack Hughes. This is the headline question, Honestly, I'm not afraid to say it. Yeah, I would love for Quinn to eventually, I'd love to play with him. And whether that's in New Jersey or what time that takes, at some point I want to play with Quinn. But yeah, that's the question going around. They talk about it all day up in Vancouver, But yeah, I'd love to play with Quinn at some point. We've actually got a new quote. Mikey, I don't know if you've seen it. It came out just a minute ago from Pierre LeBrun. Quinn Hughes speaking to the media this morning, also at the same event in Vegas. And classic Quinn Hughes answer. This guy is just, I would say, a very steady heartbeat on him. I don't feel like Quinn Hughes ever gets too high or too low. And he's got this dry wit sense of humor. He goes, I mean, he's my brother. What's he supposed to say? I don't want to play with him. So yeah. I love that line. He says, we all have contracts and whatnot. He's on a different team. Would it be fun to play with those guys at some point? Of course. If you guys have brothers, you'd say the same things. I'm excited to be in Vancouver. I feel like last year was a bit of a failure. I've got things to do there, and Jack loves Jersey, and he's got things to do also. So I don't think that we're going to see a blockbuster before camp, but one day they're going to play together.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be this year. If anyone's expecting for the reunion to come this season and for a blockbuster to happen over the next, week before training camps kick off, I think that is very unlikely. I'll give that a 0.001% chance. But someday, one day, I could see it happening. I am curious, where it's most likely to happen, though.
Well, you said the number. You said 2 there. I know it was TO. I'm going to go with TWO. Well, there's 2. Hughes is in New Jersey, so it's more likely, I think, for one to go down to where the other 2 are.
I don't know, though, because you look at what Quinn Hughes means to the Vancouver Canucks. He's the captain of that team, right? So, I think it feels as though maybe Vancouver would be more willing to, put together a package to keep Quinn Hughes, to bring in his brothers, as opposed to, losing Quinn Hughes. Like I think it's very possible that, and plus, look at who the general manager is, or well, the president is in Vancouver. It's Jim Rutherford. Trader Jim loves himself a good old
Trader
blockbuster.
Jim.
Loves himself a good old blockbuster. And you don't think bringing in Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes to pair up with Quinn would be on his board? I think he would love to make something like that happen in Vancouver.
Well, the Canucks Twitter community has already gone fully on board the sell train. Our good friend Grady Sass posted this yesterday. I don't know if you've seen it. That's from right after Quinn Hughes was drafted. It's his brother Jack wearing a Vancouver Canucks hat and saying,
There you go.
Canucks, baby.
There you go. There you go. It's already ready to go. He's ready to be a Canucks. He probably fell asleep in that. It's just like Pajama Boy with John Tavares. Jack Hughes is Hat Boy when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, there's a very simple package too that realistically could make this trade happen and go through. Like the problem is if you're Jersey, Jack Hughes has dealt with a lot of injury. So like, although Jack Hughes, once upon a time, you looked at him and you thought, man, this guy could become not only the face of our franchise, but like one of the faces of the league. Like he could easily become a top 10 player in the NHL. Injuries have slowed him from becoming that. And I wonder if maybe because of those injuries, if they worry a little bit about his future and if he ever reaches that potential, and if that's the case, maybe they would try and deal him away for someone who's also, super talented. And the Canucks have someone who is just as talented as Jack Hughes and, relatively the same age. I think they went in 1 year apart. I think they're 1 year apart. Elias Pettersson.
2 drafts apart.
Was it 2 years apart?
Drafts at least. I don't know if one was older for their draft year or lower, but Pettersson was 2017, right?
Yeah, either 2017. Darlene's draft. Remember Darlene? Was he 17?
He wasn't Darlene's draft. No. That's the one draft I know down pat because that was the Brady Tkachuk draft with Quinn Hughes. Or are you talking about Quinn Hughes or are you talking about Pettersson?
Pettersson. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, you're right. Pettersson 2017. So whatever, 2 years apart. Regardless, that's kind of like where Vancouver starts, right? Like Pettersson for Hughes, and then how do you make it work on either side? Well, I guess you throw in Luke Hughes in there, so like
just throwing him in 4th overall pick. And by the way, Luke
throwing
Hughes,
him in, but like the Canucks have a good young defensive prospect too, like Wallinder or Vollinder, whatever you want to say it. Like he was a top 10 pick a couple years ago. Could he be of interest for the New Jersey Devils if the Hughes brothers really want to play together? And Luke and Jack, don't really like. I'm pretty sure Luke Hughes, has he signed his deal?
No, I was just going to say that him and Mason McTavish are the 2 guys who are still RFAs unsigned, and Max Gannett.
Yeah, so you could question, I guess, Luke's whether or not he wants to be there long term. Doesn't seem like he's uber excited to get an extension done. It doesn't sound like New Jersey is willing to give him the bag. So do they believe that he's a big part of this future? I don't know. Just speculating, spitballing. But I think that it's very conceivable that there could be a trade that could happen that makes sense for both teams, where the Hughes brothers land in Vancouver and Elias Pettersson and maybe Wallinder, maybe Jonathan Lekkerimäki, potentially wind up in New Jersey, and that makes it happen.
Not only is Jim Rutherford, Trader Jim as you called him, but if the Canucks lost Quinn Hughes, forget what the return is. You don't recover from that. That's full rebuild, tear it down, trade everybody, and start from scratch.
Which is why I think Vancouver is more likely and that would be the more desperate team to make it happen.
Yep, I see that. That. Well, let us know in the comments on YouTube whether or not you see a world where the Hughes brothers reunite, A, in the next few years, and B, where it would be. You're going with Vancouver. I'm going with New Jersey, just based on numbers and contracts as well. The fact that Quinn is entering the situation where he's going to be able to re-up and pick as an unrestricted free agent where he would go. Going to be fascinating to watch that.
You know what Vancouver should have done? Vancouver should have just given an offer sheet to Luke. Actually, I don't think is Luke Hughes offer sheet. I don't think he's actually eligible for an offer sheet. I was gonna say they should have offer sheet him. Then you got one over. Now you just got to work on Jack.
Yeah, just one at a time. Hey, exactly.
Yeah.
Do what
But
you got to do.
I don't know if he was eligible for an offer sheet.
Be such a great story if it did happen, as long as the Canucks don't get any ideas, because we don't need that. We don't need that happening all over the league. But it would be cool if the Hughes do end up playing together. We talked yesterday, or at least our good friends Seth and JD did on Locked On NHL, about the Calgary Flames and how they've struggled scoring goals. Well, one thing they did find is a way to keep them out of their own net. Dustin Wolf, heck of a rookie season, a .910 save percentage, and he has gotten paid. We'll discuss that later on in the show, but more storylines from the NHL Media Tour when we return. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's their 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Do you have subscriptions that you forgot you're paying? Well, if you link all your accounts with Monarch, they can spot subscriptions you aren't using. Canceling those will save you even more. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. We are back full-time all across the network. New shows on every team 5 days a week. So please like, subscribe, wherever you get your podcast. Goes a long way to helping the show grow. And when your team's playing against another, get a view from the other side by typing in Locked On, followed by the team name, and get caught up by local experts on the biggest story. Shout out to the everydayers out there who make us your first listen each and every weekday. Mikey, what other storylines out of the NHL Media Tour in Las Vegas caught your attention?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on out here. This is a good time where the rumor mill really starts picking up. It's really the first time, all off season where a lot of these top tier talents in the NHL convene in one place. So a lot of the insiders and beat writers and national writers make their way down to Vegas and have a chance to speak with some players. I know Connor Bedard spoke on his contract and, let it be known that he wants to be there. He's let them know that he plans on being in Chicago and wants a contract. He is obviously someone who is eligible for an extension at any point now. His boy, Frank Nazar, got one earlier in the year. Still waiting on what that Bedsy contract will look like in Chicago. And I wonder, who do you think wants to wait more, Bedard or Chicago? Because I don't think Bedard has earned a massive contract the way that maybe some other guys, or the way that maybe you thought he would have a couple of years ago, the way that McDavid earned that massive deal out of his ELC, the way Matthews earned a massive deal out of his ELC. I don't think Bedard has necessarily put up those type of numbers to warrant that. So I wonder if he's waiting to maybe pop off this season, if he feels good about his third year coming off a down sophomore slump where he's waiting himself to sign his deal, and maybe that third season turns out to be a little bit better and he can get the bag next offseason.
Well, to answer your question, I'd say the Hawks are probably more likely to wait, and that's because they've had such an inability to surround him with talent. In the projected lineup, he's playing with Andre Burakovsky and Ryan Donato. No disrespect to those guys, but Matthews coming off his deal is playing with Marner the whole time, and they had talent around them. This is a complete ineptitude, and I'm going to just hammer the Chicago Blackhawks until they get good for passing on Ivan Demidov, because could you imagine the excitement in Chicago right now if you're like, okay, It's going to be Demidov coming over, starting his contract, and then you've got Bedard going into the third year. It just would have been perfect. But no, they had to rob of that. So until they surround him with the proper talent, if I'm Bedard, I'm saying, yeah, I put up almost 80 points last year, and I was carrying my line, at least offensively. I know there's a ton defensively that the teenager still needs to work on, but I would say, look, like I'm doing everything I can with what I've got to work with. And yes, they do have nice pieces. Frank Nazar is a nice player, although he's likely to play center behind him in the lineup. Like they just have done such a bad job. And this year they didn't even try. Last year they handed out so much money to guys who just were not fits. Teuvo Teravainen, Tyler Bertuzzi, Nick Foligno, who I get that signing. You want to have leadership, and he wasn't the most expensive one. The two others are where I'm really pointing my finger, and Bertuzzi in particular. He showed flashes for you guys with the Leafs and then in Boston, and then it just did not work out at all. So,
TJ Brody on the back end, same thing, didn't work out.
Like they're on their way for another top 5 pick this year. If I'm looking at Chicago,
I think so. I think they probably are one of the teams that are like, we'd rather bottom out for McKenna.
Yeah, them and Pittsburgh, I think, is probably the only two teams that would admit it, at least. I think San Jose is probably still there, although they're at least fun. Like, that's what I'm saying. If they had Demidov, at least they'd be fun. Right. And there are some good stories on Chicago. Like, don't let this be a complete, wipe the floor, you're done. Like, that Sam Renzel guy, he was a great story last year coming in and making impact. Like, they got him projected on the top pair, though, Mikey. Like,
it's just because the team's trash and awful. They got him projected over Levshunov, or is that their top pair?
They've got those two as the top 2 right defensemen. They've got Alex Vlasic on the left side. He's a good defenseman too, still coming into his own. Their decor, they've got one guy over 23 years old, and that's Connor Murphy playing on the bottom pair. Like, this team, they're young, but they're not that fun. And that's the problem I have with Chicago.
Yeah, which is weird because they have Connor Bedard, and 2 years ago, imagine talking about a team with Connor Bedard and being like, yeah, they're not that fun. Like, no, that'd be a crazy thing to say. It'd be a wild thing to say. But I think they brought in a new coach. Did they bring in Jeff Blashill? Is that who they brought in as the new coach?
Yeah.
Didn't go so well his first time in Detroit. So we'll see what he can do with this young group in Chicago. But, I mean, he's obviously going to sign. It's just, what does that contract look like, I guess? And it's definitely going to be dependent on how this season goes. I think both parties are probably willing to wait until they see how the third year goes for Bedard here in Chicago.
Another big story coming out of the NHL Media Tour is Sidney Crosby acknowledging the fact that everybody wants him to play in the playoffs again and that it's unlikely going to happen in Pittsburgh. Like, I saw a great tweet from our good friend John Lazarus on social media the other day. Like, I get the want, and this wasn't exactly his tweet. I'll get to that in a second, but I get the want for Crosby to move somewhere. But what Johnny was saying was, like, we're in such a cool spot in the NHL right now where you do have that new school, the Hughes brothers, openly saying, like, yeah, I would move to play with my brother. I'd do this. I'd go there. I'd want him to come here. And then you also have Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby 20 years later still playing for the teams that drafted them and showing that old school loyalty. So I think there is a lot to be said about that. And funny enough, I ran into Sidney Crosby at a bar in Halifax a couple weeks ago. Like, you go to the East Coast, you see Sidney Crosby like 2 seconds later. Kind of funny how that works, but he's still an elite player. And I know the boys on Overdrive got carried away yesterday. They got the old ratio on social media for saying that, would you do Demidov for Crosby 1-for-1? But I think, look, maybe it's because if he does get traded, it might be to Montreal. Maybe that's why I'm so hesitant for a Crosby trade. But I do think there's something to be said for these old school guys like Joe Sakic and Steve Yzerman, like the guys that just played their whole career with one organization. I love that we still are hanging on to that. And there's other guys like Malkin and Letang are in that same boat, but not to the same level, of course, as Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. I love that they've played their whole career with one team, and I kind of hope it stays that way. I mean, unless it goes to Colorado.
Well, that's it.
Get him out west.
That is all right. Give him McKinnon. That's totally worth it. That makes sense. Yeah. No, I honestly, I think I don't know. I don't have that same viewpoint. Whereas, I it's cool, I guess, that he's been in Pittsburgh for 20 years, but I think it'd be even cooler to watch him compete for a Stanley Cup. Like I think getting him in a place that's not rebuilding is best for hockey. I truly do believe that. Hey, you talk about Connor Bedard not having anything around him and how boring it is to watch that team. You don't want to have the same problem with Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh. Like, at least, Washington with Ovi, like, that's a playoff bound team. They've been able to retool that organization, and they're still good. Like, last year, they won the President's Trophy. Like, it's still a good team. Not the same case here with Pittsburgh. I would love if they moved him and dealt him. I think you're looking at two teams right now that make the most sense in the Montreal Canadiens and the Colorado Avalanche. Both teams likely to compete. Avalanche, certainly a playoff team. The Habs, they were one a year ago. See if they could possibly become one again this year. And if you put Sidney Crosby in the mix, all of a sudden that team goes from a possible playoff team to like a real true competitor. So, and they've got the pieces. They've got young talent that they can move off of, both at the NHL level and in this feeder system. And they also have draft picks. So it does make a lot of sense that there's some chatter around that. And of course, like, he's from the East Coast. He grew up a Montreal Canadiens fan, played in Rimouski. Makes a lot of sense that he, could possibly end his career sort of where it all began for Sid.
The thing with Pittsburgh too, like, I don't think they're a good team. I don't think they're a Stanley Cup contender, obviously, but they were third last in the league in goals against last year. And they decided to run it back with Tristan Jarry.
Exactly.
I don't get
it because they want to bottom out and
they want
terrible.
to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like, that's that. There's no other. No other reason for it. I think that he's gone. Rickard Rakell, I think, is probably a player they're going to look to move at some point. Brian Rust is someone they're going to look to move at some point.
But what about Erik Karlsson too, right? Like, he's not getting any younger either, and he's a guy who's, he still had 53 points last year, and he's only 3 seasons removed from winning the Norris Trophy.
Yeah. Someone will fall in love with the possibility of, like, capturing that lightning in the bottle that Erik Karlsson can provide you. And someone will definitely take Karlsson off their hands. Won't pay an exorbitant amount of money, but they'll take Karlsson off their hands to just to bring him into the fold. So they have pieces that they can move, and I think that Sidney Crosby obviously brings them back the best return of all.
Man, Craig Oster did such a great job with Karlsson's contract. Like, you simply cannot buy that deal out. Even next offseason, like, it makes absolutely no sense, just the way it was structured. So signing bonus heavy, so front heavy, and we'll see what happens there, because as obviously Sidney Crosby's the main story.
Well, what's the money left on that Karlsson deal? Like, actual
in real
cash.
money?
Yeah, cash.
So he's already had his 2025 signing bonus paid, right? That's July 1st. So $4 million in salary this year, then a $6 million signing bonus, and then a $1.5 million salary next year.
So he's got 11.5.
Yeah, $11.5 million over 2 years, which ironically is his cap hit per season. But of course, the San Jose Sharks kept, I believe it was $1.5 million on that contract. So he's playing at $10 million right now with Pittsburgh, and just double checking. Yeah, that is correct. So if they eat it, that's a $5 million cap hit for another team to eat for Karlsson. And not a math guy here, but half of 11.5 million.
Yeah, cash wise. That'd be the cash. Yeah, that's there's going to be a lot of teams that will take that. Like, especially with the cap rising so like exponentially over the next couple of years. Like, there's teams that are just going to need to get to the floor, and being able to get there with $11.5 million in cap, but only having to pay the guy half that money to perform. There's a lot of teams that like it. There's a lot of owners that like that. So it's definitely not a hard contract to move if you're Pittsburgh. Again, I don't think anyone's
Chicago could get him. He'd be fun.
Chicago could be a place to potentially. Like, I don't think anyone's going to have to give up a first round pick to take on that albatross of a contract. Probably, man, a second and a prospect probably. But yeah, that's a tradable deal as well.
All right. On the other side, Dustin Wolf, I'll go ahead and say it, not going to get traded. He just signed a 7-year extension with the Calgary Flames. We'll get into what that means next. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It is America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff every week with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Don't be like me and bet on Caleb Williams. Be smart with your money at FanDuel. You can see all the live props. You can even look ahead to futures, not only for the NFL, but the NHL season. So get in on the action, and if you have a hot take, you know it's going to happen, go put your money where your mouth is over at FanDuel. It's quick, easy, and the best way is to add a little more energy to your sports viewing. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we have local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week. Huge signing in Calgary with Dustin Wolf signing a 7-year extension with a total value of $52.5 million. That means his cap hit will be $7.5 million. And this, much like Connor Bedard and the talk about his contract, it's not for right away. This contract is going to start in the 2026-27 NHL season, still playing second year of an $850,000 contract, enormous value for the Calgary Flames. And what a start, because Dustin Wolf's been doubted his whole career as an undersized goalie. He's just 6 feet tall on the nose, was passed over as a guy who had exceptional numbers in junior hockey, like exceptional, and still fell to the 7th round in the NHL draft.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the AHL and puts up exceptional numbers there. And he had to work and do it multiple seasons to get his opportunity. Then he gets a nod as a nominee for the Calder Trophy. Like, what a come up for Dustin Wolf.
Oh, absolutely. And, undersized guy who obviously there was a lot going against him, and he was able to fight through it, became AHL goaltender of the year a couple of years ago. I think he was AHL MVP, if I'm not mistaken, as well in that same season. And he was a stud last year for the Calgary Flames. A .910 save percentage, a .264 goals against, a 29-16-8 record for the Flames, 53 games played. Like that's a starter in 2025. That is a starting goaltender. If he can play more than 50 games and prove that he can be healthy throughout that and be solid, you pay that guy, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of those dudes out there. I did find it interesting that they were already totally committed to this player after really one full season in the NHL, that they're like, yep, he's our guy. We're giving him $7.5 million moving forward, and we're not even going to think twice about it. I did think that was kind of interesting that they went that long and that high right off the bat, but I mean, he's been a great goalie at every level that he's played. I have no doubts that Dustin Wolf is going to continue to be a stud for the Calgary Flames.
And they've got so much cap flexibility in Calgary coming up. Now, there are obviously pieces to re-sign, but even after the $7.5 million to Dustin Wolf, they still have $29.5 million in cap space for next off season. They're going to have to find goals like JD and Seth talked about yesterday on Locked On NHL. But Dustin Wolf is a guy who I would be betting on. I mentioned how good he's been at every level. You're right. He's an MVP at the AHL level. He's also a 2-time AHL goalie of the year and a 2-time WHL goalie of the year. Everywhere he's gone,
every
he's
level, man,
the best goalie. In 149 WHL games, he had a .935 save percentage. That's outrageous. And then the AHL in 141 games, these sample sizes are huge. A .926 save percentage, and in 28 playoff games, a .922. This guy just stops the puck. No matter where he is, he stops the puck. So I think it's a good bet.
Yeah. The only thing that you could look at Dustin Wolf and question is the height, because he's only 6 feet tall, right? And
Yeah.
for goalies, that's not very large.
No,
He's
there's
one of the-
what, 3 goalies that are under 6'1"?
yeah, and he's one of them. But
Yeah, it's him, Saros, and I think I'm forgetting one other guy.
yeah, him, Saros.
For a long time, it was Halak, but obviously he's retired now.
Yeah, but
Trying to find
Dustin
it.
Wolf, man, I have confidence that this is going to work out well. I think that they know that he's their goalie of the future. And this is a team that, you know, they haven't had a lot of great goaltending over the years. They did sign Markstrom, who gave him some pretty solid goaltending when he was there. But prior to Markstrom, it was just a revolving door of guys, right? Like,
Yeah, ever since Mika Kiprusoff.
yeah, it was like Mika Kiprusoff, and then it was just they just trial and error for, you know, about like 10 years after that, before Markstrom came around. And then Markstrom was solid, but they decided, hey, we like this Dustin Wolf kid. We can move Markstrom. And that's what they did last summer. They moved Markstrom to New Jersey, and they gave the keys to the kingdom to Dustin Wolf. They said, let's see what you do in your first year. And again, went out, played 50 games, was a better than league average goaltender in his first full season in the NHL. And they decided, you know what, we're ready. We're ready to commit to this player to be our goalie of the future. Gave him a big contract, and now they got that position settled up for the next 7 years.
He huffed and he puffed and he blew the house down. The other goalies that are under 6'1", full-time NHLers will go with Jet Greaves, Casey Smith,
I didn't realize Jet
Alex
Greaves was
Nedeljkovic.
a little guy like that.
Yeah, the only one who's under 6 feet is UC Saros at 5'11".
Yeah, also a stud. Didn't have a great season last year, but
No,
generally a stud. You think Jet Greaves is a flash in the pan, or you think
No.
he's the real deal?
I think he's actually very similar to Dustin Wolf in the sense that his height has stopped him from getting opportunities faster. But at every level that he's been at, he's put up exceptional numbers as well.
How old is Jet Greaves? Because he was
Greaves
one
is
of those.
24.
He was one of those guys where if he didn't play like X amount of games, he was going to be like a UFA 6
Right.
or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then they got him into some games late in the season. He ended up playing 11 games, put up a 938 save percentage, a 191 goals against, and a 7-2-2 record for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I believe they won the final 6 games of the season and nearly made the playoffs on that run. A hamburglar run, if you will.
Yeah, well, he got in.
Yeah, well, they would have got in. It wasn't on them. They won 6 games in a row. Montreal just had to win a game, and then they were fine. But they probably should have went to Jack Greaves a lot sooner than the final 11 games, and then maybe Columbus would have been a playoff team. Yeah, I believe I said last year I thought Columbus was going to surprise people and be a playoff team. I'm going to go back to the well. I think Columbus makes the playoffs this year. I think Jack Greaves is for real. I think that they got some good pieces offensively. Obviously, Zach Werenski being a dog defensively. They've got some other pieces on the back end. I think it's a well-rounded team, and I think they've got good coaching now with he was in Minnesota forever. What's his name?
Oh, Dean Evison.
Dean Evison. He had a great first season out of this group. Got a lot of Adam Fantilli, who I think is going to be an absolute star in the league. Yep. And if this goalie's legit, Jack Greaves, that's kind of been what's holding them back. I think they were a top 5, I believe, goal scoring team last year. 7th. Yeah. Okay. So 7th in the league in goal scoring last season.
25th in goals against. So Jack Greaves came in too late.
And they finished a point out of the playoffs. So if they can get it done in between the pipes and make some saves, I think the Columbus Blue Jackets are a team that's probably going to compete for a playoff spot. I think they'll make the playoffs this year. Not even compete. I think they're a playoff team if Jack Greaves is league average or better.
I still have 5 teams coming out of the Atlantic, so it's going to be tough then if that's the case, like it was last year for Columbus to be top 3 in the Metro division.
I mean,
Carolina's a lock for sure.
Yeah, Carolina.
Pretty wide open right after that. Like right? I don't believe in New Jersey that much, and I know that might be a hot take. They've been a playoff team consistently.
Yeah, but how can you believe that they'll stay healthy? Like for them, it's about health. Like if they're fully healthy, that's a team that obviously you should have belief in. But I can't rely on them staying healthy. They just haven't done it on a yearly basis every year, whether it's Jack Hughes or it's Nico Hischier or it's Timo Meier or like Dougie Hamilton. Like someone's getting hurt, and it totally derails the season. So that's a team that's with big question marks. Was Washington that good? Like, are they going to be as good as they were a year ago? I don't know. I'm really not too sure. If last year was a flash in the pan for them, where it was all hype about Ovi's race, because once Ovi hit the number, broke the record, that team kind of went downhill quick. And I wonder, going into next season, not as much to play for, are they going to have that same mojo and vibes? We'll see. But yeah, I think Columbus is another group that could take that next step. We've been waiting for one of those teams in the East to take that next step and put themselves, in that category of being a contender in the East. I think Columbus has an opportunity to do it.
Okay, and we will find out as the puck is set to drop in just under a month. Rookie tournament starting this upcoming weekend. Next week, we got a Wednesday show as always, and that's the day, at least for the Ottawa Senators, that they're starting training camp. So camps will be opening around the league, and we'll get you all the biggest storylines that are coming out of them. In the meantime, go check out Locked On Maple Leafs, Locked On Senators. That's Mike DiStefano. I'm Ross Levitan. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.